One other thing to mention about masters versus slaves is the seriousness that slave morality, or the gravity that slave morality attributes to itself, or that the perspective naturally has. That is, slave morality is very serious. It doesn't have a sense of humor. Whereas for Nietzsche, the noble morality, or the master morality, is carefree, it's joyful, it's jovial, it doesn't care, right? And on the other hand, slaves have no sense of humor for Nietzsche. Someone who feels threatened out of a perspective of weakness, everything is serious, they're offended very easily, versus the master lets slights roll off, doesn't even care, right? And it's something to think about the way humor plays out. Or you could imagine walking into a church. I could imagine Nietzsche thinking of this. If you walk into, let's say a Catholic church, and you're sitting in the front row, and everybody's just telling jokes and laughing, everyone around would go, "Shh, it's very serious. God is here," right? And Nietzsche thinks there's something about that spirit of gravity, or that spirit of seriousness, that lacks humor, that lacks a carefree attitude, that lacks power. So humor and laughter, in the end, are nothing more than a way of dealing with your own power situation. If you can laugh at things, if you can find things funny, you've in some sense overcome that spirit of resentment, right? Whereas on the other hand, if you lose your sense of humor, that's a good indication that you're feeling threatened and vengeful. Now, it's interesting to think about, especially today. Everybody talks about our culture of offense, or how easily we're offended, and whether that's true or not, or good or bad, that's irrelevant. But he's got a psychological insight here, or at least he's making a psychological claim. Whether or not it's an insight is up to you to judge. But when we feel our most offended, when we say that's offensive, or I'm taking offense here, we feel threatened, and to a certain extent, we're saying, I'm drawing a line here. That's not funny, right? Whereas he would imagine someone who's completely powerful and full of life, never offended at anything, just letting everything roll off you. Now, whether or not this is possible is up to you to judge. But there's something here, I think, namely that a morality or a perspective of life, full of carefreeness, not taking yourself or reality seriously, because after all, it's constantly changing. Who cares? There's a freedom in that. That's why Nietzsche sometimes calls this side of the equation the free spirit philosophy. Versus on the other side, being bitter and resentful and angry and taking offense all the time and having no sense of humor. So humor is another way then to distinguish between the perspective of the master and the perspective of the slave for Nietzsche.